get ready for something very special. Stepping into your power. How does that sound? Awakening. Oh, thank you for cheering. Awakening the spiritual entrepreneur in you. How does that sound? Can I have more cheers? Are you ready to design the life of your dreams? I like it. Can I hear another yes? Yeah, I like that. So let's begin.
يشرفنا أن ندعو على خشبة المسرح الشريكة المؤسسة للمطعم الفيتنامي الأكثر حصولاً على جوائز في العالم، وخبيرة التنمية التي تعد واحدة من أشهر الشخصيات المؤثرة في أستراليا، Pauline Nguyen.
We are honored to invite on the stage the co-founder of the world's most awarded Vietnamese restaurant and one of Australia's most impactful speakers and development coaches, Pauline Nguyen.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It is my joy to be with you today. Let me look at you first. Let me look at you first and breathe you in. Lovely. So here we are, together at the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival, our eyes blinking together, us breathing together, our hearts beating together in this most palpable constellation in time. How blessed are we? How blessed are we? And I want to acknowledge the diversity and the variety of people in the room, from startups to already established entrepreneurs to investors to the gladiators as well in the room. Thank you for having me. November 2021. We made it. We made it. What a ride the last 2 years has been, hey? What a ride. And here we are. And during these most eventful, tumultuous, and important times, I have learnt 3 very valuable lessons. The first is that we are living at a most profound place in time, are we not? We're living at a profound place in time where we are all at square one with ourselves. It is a changing of the history of humanity, and we cannot afford to not know this. We cannot afford to not know this. My friends, the world literally stopped for us to reinvent ourselves. And so too must we reinvent the questions that we ask ourselves now. No longer can we be asking, how can I find a way to keep doing what I'm doing? But rather we should be asking, how can I find many ways to do things very differently in a very different world? No longer can we be asking, how the hell am I going to get through this? We have to be asking, how am I continually going to reinvent myself in order to stay ahead of the game? The second question I ask myself, what else did I learn? The second thing I've learned in these most very valuable, important, tumultuous times is that crisis does not change people. Crisis reveals them. How you do crisis is how you do life. How did you do crisis? Did you play the blame game, the shame game, the low aim game? Or did you show up with dignity, grace, and poise at every turn? Did you show up for yourself and your people with calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit to do what needs to be done? And the third very valuable lesson I've learned in these important times is that personal disruption cannot happen unless personal development happens. Personal development cannot happen unless personal disruption happens. Personal disruption cannot happen unless personal introspection happens first. And what more intimate and profound relationship do we have than the relationship with our own internet? We must continue to do the deep inner work. We have to continue to disrupt ourselves. How else are we going to stay ahead of the game? We have to continue to do the internal revolutions so that we can powerfully influence the external evolutions. My friends, the cards that we are dealt with is called fate. But what we do with those cards, that's called destiny. So allow me to give you some background. You see, my family and I are boat people. We escaped Vietnam just after the war. I was 3 years old at the time, and my brother Lewis was 2. My father built a boat and smuggled us out into the South China Sea. My grandmother begged him not to leave. She couldn't understand how a parent would want to risk perishing their children out at sea. But my father had already made up his mind. He would rather die trying than risk imprisonment or a fate far worse, the re-education camps. And he would tell me, it's not enough that they want to take our freedom, they want to take our thoughts as well. And he was determined that if we died, we would all die together. So armed with only a rudimentary map and a compass to guide him, he smuggled us out into the South China Sea. We spent 9 days out at sea and landed in Thailand, where we spent a very difficult year in a refugee camp there. It was where my brother Luke was born, in a lean-to tent. And in 1978, Australia finally accepted us. And we came into this new world with nothing. Nothing. No house, no job, no money. We didn't know the laws, the language, or the systems. And with the compounded stress of being in a brand new country and caring for a new wife with tuberculosis, caring for 2 young children as well as a newborn, my father befriended bitterness, anger, and rage on a daily basis. My father suffered terribly from post-traumatic stress disorder. It was a condition that he had acquired from the war. He was like a faulty pressure cooker about to explode at any point in time. And it wasn't long until he started to offload his anger on my mother, and soon he started to offload his anger on us kids as well. If someone were to ask me now what it is that I remember most about my childhood, it would be the overwhelming stench of fear. Fear followed me everywhere that I went. Fear stayed with me every day. I could not get rid of the stench of fear. I know what fear smells like. My father was brought up with violence, and so he too brought us up with violence. It was the only thing that he knew how to do. My father was determined to raise 4 high achievers. He wanted to make sure that the sacrifices he and my mother made were honored. But desperate for a better life, my father moved us to the outer western suburbs of Cabramatta. Cabramatta was when he was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, a bug that he passed down onto me. He found a prime location in the heart of Cabramatta's bustling commercial district, and we held this prime location for over 10 years. And during this time, upstairs we had Cabramatta's very first video library. Downstairs was our very first restaurant. At the front of the restaurant, we had Cabramatta's very first ice cream parlor. The ice cream was fresh fruit ice cream. It was delicious, I know, because I was forced to make it. My father also was Cabramatta's very first barista. We had Cabramatta's very first proper espresso cappuccino machine. It was the 80s. It was a big deal. That was when the cappuccino froth was 10 centimeters high. Remember those? The frothing and frothing. My father also operated a driving school on the side, and as you can see, us kids provided the child labor. I started working at a very young age. I started working when I was 7. And on top of this, we had to get good grades as well, otherwise a firm beating ensued. My father's tyranny was ruled by an unconditional dedication, which was often fueled by an underlying desperation. But one thing was for certain, he had instilled into all of us a ferocious work ethic. I learned so much in those years, we all did. Fast forward to 2021, and along with my brother Luke and my partner Mark, we own Red Lantern, the most awarded Vietnamese restaurant in the world. And under the umbrella of Red Lantern, we write books, we make television, we travel the world, we coach, we teach, we mentor. One of the questions we get asked a lot when we're traveling is, how is it that Red Lantern is still around for 20 years? And what do you guys do to compete in such a saturated, fickle, and competitive industry? And my answer always throws them. You see, we've never seen the top restaurants in Sydney as our competitors. We are our biggest competitors. We must write our own rules. We must run our own race. And we're still around simply because we have more grit than anyone else we know. We understand, thank you. We understand that persistency is the new currency. We must practice never give up-ology. And there is something to be said for still staying in the game long after the others have given up. You see, the universe rewards the unreasonably determined. And so when this pandemic hit, I asked myself this question, Pauline, what has your life already demonstrated? In times of this magnitude, I look back on my upbringing. I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as if I was in training. I look back on my upbringing, and that was my training. COVID-19 saw the international borders close. This is not good news for an international speaker. I ain't going anywhere. COVID-19 saw the immediate closure of public dining spaces. This is not fun news for a restaurant owner. Pauline, what is your life already demonstrated? My life has demonstrated that time and time again, in the face of adversity, I show up with dignity, grace, and poise. I show up for myself and my people with calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit to do what needs to be done. And as leaders, we are all leaders here. As leaders, it is our responsibility to influence ourselves in the face of any adversity, because we understand that the game of business mastery is the game of mastering influence. And the first person we have to have absolute mastery over is ourselves. Self-leadership is key. Self-mastery is key. As leaders, and we are all leaders here, it is our responsibility to snatch as much positive value and to make as many powerful meanings as possible from any situation, any adversity that comes our way. Your people will always follow the most calm and composed leader, because calm is contagious, and so is fear. As leaders, we are always being watched. My latest book, The Way of the Spiritual Entrepreneur, The 7 Secrets to Becoming Fearless, Stress-Free, and Unshakable in Business and in Life. This book contains many of my life lessons, and it contains many important and potent concepts that may very well assist you also in these very important, tumultuous, potent times. But what my book truly offers are new ways of seeing things and new reasons for doing things differently. In a world that reveres superficiality, the spiritual entrepreneur goes deep. Now, I must make it clear, the spirituality that I refer to has nothing to do with religion, right? I believe that it is religion that needs spirituality. Spirituality does not need religion. Spirituality is simply physics that has yet to be explained. And what does it mean to be spiritual? It means to live your life in spirit and inspired. Some of the most successful people I know live their lives in spirit and inspired to do their best work. How can we do our best work when we still have the toxicity of rage and bitterness and anger running through our veins? Over the years, having coached many entrepreneurs and executives, I've come to realize that there is a new type of suffering that has been misdiagnosed as psychological suffering, and it is a spiritual suffering, a suffering of the spirit, a suffering of the soul. Over the years, I've come to understand that happiness alone is not such a powerful trait, but being fearless, stress-free, and unshakable, especially in business and entrepreneurship, now that is a more powerful trait. We don't have business problems. We have personal problems that reflect in our business. Over the years, having worked with so many people, I've come to understand that it is not the pursuit of happiness that we are after, but it is finding happiness in the pursuit. This is where fulfillment lives, finding happiness in the pursuit. Because when that happens, when we take responsibility for finding happiness in the pursuit, something miraculous happens. In that moment of decision, when we have decided to do life very, very differently, providence comes online. In that moment of decision, something miraculous happens. We start to let go of the addictions to the emotions of the past. We start to let go of the addiction to our own limitations. And we start to let go of the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and believe. And this is when we step into a new version of ourselves. We start to upgrade our human technology. We reset the brain. The brain gets reset into a new intellectual understanding, a new intellectual acceptance that causality can work in a very different way, and that things aren't all as they seem. When we make that decision to do life very differently, and when we can continue to step into the unknown, fearless, stress-free, and unshakable, we sit in the knowing, and it is a knowing that whatever happens, come what may, we will be beautifully fine. My friends, the opposite of fear is not hate. The opposite of fear is love. The opposite of love is fear. And now is not the time for fear. Thank you. We are here on this earth to do three things: to evolve, to push humanity forward, and to do it with joy. To evolve, to push humanity forward, and to do it with joy. And what is joy? Joy is not some false excitement. Joy is living our life in spirit and inspired, in awe, in wonder, in surprise of the smallest things as well as the biggest things. If there is one discipline that I practice rigorously, it is the rigorous discipline of joy. One of the questions that I teach my clients and I teach my students to ask themselves on a daily basis, it's a very simple question and yet a very powerful question that you might like to ask yourself every day as well. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? Write that down. Say that to yourself. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? I believe it's time to take spirituality out of the clouds and put it back into our bodies where it belongs. And so you're going to want to pay acute attention to your nervous system. The health of your nervous system will determine the thoughts you think, how you connect with the world, and your experience in life. And what is the fastest way to create a healthy and resilient nervous system? The breath. We have three intelligences: the gut intelligence, the heart intelligence, and the mind, the brain intelligence. What connects all three intelligences? The breath. We have access to the most powerful stress regulator right under our nose, and we're not even using it properly. When we can learn to master breath work, we can calm ourselves in the face of any adversity. We can center ourselves when the world seems so topsy-turvy and doesn't turn out the way we like it. When we can master the breath, we are reminded of one of the greatest gifts that we have: the gift of life. Most people allow their emotions to fuel their behaviors. The spiritual entrepreneur allows their behaviors to fuel their emotions. And when we can understand that we have this power, that we have access to our emotions, we start to live life very differently. We start to experience the joy for existence. And this is when we are in service to life. We are not waiting for life to be in service of us. This is where fulfillment truly happens. And fulfillment, my friends, fulfillment is the new currency. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? I believe that most people are operating through life working from an ancient age. They work in the old model of success that says, if you're not working hard, if you're not working crazy long hours, then you're not a successful entrepreneur. The old model of success that says, if you're not wearing burnout as a badge of honor, if you're not redlining, then you must be lazy. You're not a successful entrepreneur. How does that even make sense? How does that even make sense? That is the old model of success that has seen our community diseased and diseased. There are new ways of doing things and new reasons for doing things differently. And don't get me wrong, we are not afraid of hard work. We understand that if we don't do the work, we don't get the pay, and if we don't get the pay, we don't get to play, right? But we understand that we are rewarded not by the amount of time we put in, but by the degree of mastery that we put out. And if we are to do world-class work and produce world-class artistry, sometimes working more actually produces less. Why? Because we're not pausing to find stillness, to regenerate, to renew, to read, to study, to contemplate, to find the time and set the time for those beautiful ideas to incubate. And don't get me wrong, when it's game time, we can outwork, outplay, outfocus, outrun everybody else. But when we are done, when we have expressed ourselves in a hot, flaming ball of audacity and mastery, we go dark. We go silent. And we rest. Legendary producers are professional resters because rest is a weapon. Rest is a weapon. What do I need to do to feel the way I want to feel? Now, if inner peace is my destination and joy is my GPS, what is the fastest route to get there? The fastest route to get there is to access nature's medicine. Never underestimate the power of nature's medicine. When we connect to nature, understand that we are connecting back to ourselves. We are nature. We are wirelessly connected to the sun and hardwired to the earth. Mother Earth and Father Sun has looked after us for lifetimes. Let us not forget or underestimate the power of nature's medicine. Did you know that only 15 minutes in nature every day, whether it be walking barefoot, grounded to the grass, in the sand, on the stone, whether it be to watch the morning sun rise, activating our pineal gland, healing from the inside out, boosting our mitochondria, whether it be basking in the sun, building up our solar callus and our power so that we're not sick in the winter, whether it be jumping in the ocean, in the salt water, nature's greatest and most powerful Faraday cage, whether it be forest bathing, breathing in the photosides and the healing essential oils of the leaves and the trees, or hugging a tree. Did you know that hugging a tree neutralizes the harmful effects of artificial EMFs? Instantly. The formula is 15 minutes in nature neutralizes 1 hour of harmful artificial EMFs. Only 15 minutes out in nature reduces the risk of cold and flu and cancer and depression and anxiety by 50%. Having business meetings, walking, talking, team building meetings out in nature increases creativity, imagination, creation, innovation. If you want to connect back to our power, to never forget the medicine, nature's medicine, because we are nature. We are nature. I believe that spirituality is the medicine of the 21st century. Spirituality promises change. Spirituality promises freedom. Freedom from self, freedom from others. Now, the topic of my keynote today was stepping into your power and awakening the spiritual entrepreneur in you. Understanding that to step into our power, the concepts that I shared with you today, that rest is a weapon, accessing nature's medicine, to continue to disrupt ourselves, having calm courage, resonating resilience, and tacit grit, it is all power. It is not force. Discern the difference. The spiritual entrepreneur understands the law of vibration, the law of magnetism. We attract by standing in our power. It is not force. And so I'm often asked, how is it that a bunch of Vietnamese refugees can go on to achieve so much? I believe that the secret to our success is because we've always lived by our two greatest values, which are growth and gratitude. And it is at the intersection of growth and gratitude which is where we thrive. Because gratitude without growth means there can be no progress, right? And progress is the one thing that makes us human beings truly happy. And growth without gratitude is like a cancer. I look back on my life and I don't see that I'm the victim of any of my circumstances. I look back on my life and I see myself as the beneficiary of all the ways that I've shown up. Can you imagine if we lived in a world not of victims but of beneficiaries? Can you imagine? And in those moments when we are alone, we close our eyes and we think of those pivotal moments in our lives that we thought would never end, but they did end. But they did end, and here you are today as the next level version of yourself. And here I am today, standing in front of you. What a lucky beneficiary I am. What a lucky beneficiary I am. So since day one, thank you. Since day one, our credo has always been to share the journey. To share the journey not only as individuals, but also our journey as a collective. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share a part of my journey with you today. Because we are what we share. Thank you. Okay.